wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, we are from group 9, and before we start our presentation, let me introduce my members group. First, my name is Nolana Vita, and my friends are...
My name is Yulis Rati Mapau.
My name is Dr. Delia.
My name is Luis Esi Anastasia Rangkutri.
Alright, in this video presentation, we would like to present our presentation about social and discourse aspects of interlanguage. There are three agendas that we have. First, social aspect of interlanguage. Second, discourse aspects of interlanguage. And the last is conclusion. Social aspects play an important role in interlanguage development. There are three different approaches to incorporate social factors on the study of L2 acquisition. First, interlanguage as consisting of different styles which learners call upon under different conditions of language use. Second, concern how social factors determine the input that learners use to construct their interlanguage. The last considers how the social identities that learners negotiate in their interaction with native speakers shape their opportunities to speak and thereby to learn an L2. There are three elements of social aspects of interlanguage. First, interlanguage as a stylistic continuum. Second, the acculturation model of L2 acquisition. And the last is social identity and investment in L2 learning. Two ideas from two experts, which they argued that interlanguage as a stylistic continuum. First come from Elaine Tarrant. Elaine Tarrant argues that learners develop a capability of L2 and this underlies all regular language behavior. Thus, the learners are able to attend to their choice of linguistic form, as when they feel they need to be correct, and they are able to make choice of linguistic form spontaneously, as likely in free conversation. It seems that interlanguage is a stylistic continuum. The continuum is the careful style and vernacular style. Tarrant has acknowledged the model also has a number of problems. First, later research has shown that learners are not always most accurate in their careful style and least accurate in their vernacular style. Second, is that the role of social factors remains unclear. Another theory is Howard Gill's accommodation theory. This seeks to explain how a learner's social group influences of the course of L2 acquisition. For Gill, the key idea is that of social accommodation. He suggests that when people interact with each other, they either try to make their speech similar to that of their address in order to emphasize social cohesiveness, or to make it different in order to emphasize their social distinctiveness. According to the Gill's theory, then social factors influence interlanguage development via the impact they have on the attitudes that determine the kind of language use learners engage in. Accommodation theory suggests that social factors mediated through the interactions that learners take part in influence both how quickly they learn and the actual route that they follow. Idea of stylistic variation also came from him. He argues that when people interact with each other, they either try to make their speech similar to that of their address in order to emphasize social cohesiveness, or a process of convergence, or to make it different in order to emphasize their social distinctiveness, or a process of divergence. It has been suggested that L2 acquisition involves convergence and divergence. Convergence means levels of proficiency ensure, and divergence means less learning takes place. Those social factors influence interlanguage development via attitudes. The acculturation model of L2 acquisition. As presented by Schumann, social factors determine the amount of contact with the L2 individual learners experience and thereby how successful they are in learning. There are two problems with such a model. First, it fails to acknowledge that factors like integration pattern and attitude are not fixed and static but potentially variable and dynamic, fluctuating in accordance with the learner's changing social experience. Second, it fails to acknowledge that learners are not just subject to social conditions but can also become the subject of them. They can help to construct the social context of their own learning. Schumann proposed that pagination in L2 acquisition is very simple language that used by learners to contact other people. They fail to acculturate to the target language group because of inability or unwillingness to adapt to a new culture. He stated that the main reason for learners failing to acculturate is social distance. A learner's social distance is determined by a number of factors such as the opportunity of the learner to share the same social facilities with the target language group. Social identity and investment in L2 learning. Bonnie Pierce argues that language learners have complete social identity that can only be understood in terms of power relation that shape social structures. A learner's social identity is multiple and contradictory. Learning is successful when learners are able to summon up or construct an identity that enables them to impose their right to be heard and thus become the subject of discourse. This requires investment, something learners will only make if they believe their effort will increase the value of their cultural capital. Learners use language to locate themselves in their community and also in L2 environment. Successful learners are those who reflect critically on how they engage with native speakers and who are prepared to challenge the accepted social order by constructing and asserting social identities of their own choice.
Okay, well, here I will continue the explanation from my friend. It is about acquiring discourse rules. There are rules, or at least regularities, in the ways in which native speakers hold conversation. In the United States, for example, a compliment usually calls for a response, and failure to provide one can be considered sociolinguistic error. Furthermore, in America, English compliment responses are usually quite elaborate, involving some attempt on the part of the speaker to play down the compliment by making some unfavorable comment. And the next is, however, second language learners behave differently. Sometimes they fail to respond to a compliment at all. At other times, they produce bare responses. There is growing body of research in investigating learner discourse. This shows that to some extent, at least, the acquisition of discourse rules, like the acquisition of grammatical rules, is systematic, reflecting both distinct type of error and development recons. And the rule of input and interaction in second language acquisition, a number of rather different theoretical positions can be identified. A behaviorist view reader language learning as environmentally determined, controlled from the outside by the stimuli learners are exposed to and the reinforcement they receive. And in contrast, mentalist theories embrace the the importance of the learner's black box. They maintain that learners' brains are especially equipped to learn language, and all that is needed is minimal exposure to input in order to trigger acquisition. Interactionist theories of second language acquisition acknowledge the importance of both input and internal language processing.
Well, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to explanation to you, my friends, our friends, two types of foreigners talk, right? There are two types of foreigner talks. The first is ungrammatically foreigner talk. It is about socially marked. It often implies a look or respect, implies a look reprise. It's mean on the native speaker and can be reset by learners. It's so characterized by deletions of certain grammatically features such as copula, bimodal, verb, and articles, right? And for the less grammatically Faulkner talks, it means that various types of modification of deletion talk can be identified. For the fourth section, the first is grammatically foreigner talk is delivered at slower pace, and the second, grammatically foreigner talks, is the sometimes regularity, and the last four, foreigner talk sometimes consists of elaborate language use. I think it's enough for explanation about two types of foreigner talks. Will be continue for my friends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the chance. Now I would like to explain about the rule of output in second language acquisition. The output, on the other hand, is the language they produce, either in speaking or writing. For example, the productive skills. The learners are in control when they produce language output and can play more active roles in their learning. Output might play role in promoting noticing. It makes a potentially important factor in the acquisition process. Then, in the role of output in second language acquisition, we need to consider whether output plays a part in interlanguages development. Here some conflicting opinions. First, Crescent agrees that speaking is the result of acquisition, not its cause. He claims that the only way learners can learn from their output is by treating it as auto-input. In effect, Crescent is refuting the crisis belief of many teachers that languages are learned by practicing them. Okay, the second, Meryl Swain, has agreed that comprehensible output also plays in second language acquisition. She suggests a number of specific ways in which learners can learn from their own output. First, output can serve a continuous raising function by helping learners to notice gaps in their interlanguages. Second, output helps learners to test hypotheses. And the third, learners sometimes talk about their own output, identifying problems with it and discussing ways in which they can be put right. Okay, I think it's enough. I give it back to the moderator.
Thank you for the explanation from Yuli, Natasha, and Gelis. This is the conclusion from our presentation.